Hey guys, Chaz and Laurie here.
Hello.
How you guys doing?
Morning.
This is a message just out to the board, and we wanted to let you know where our heart was and what's going on and what our intentions are for the future. And as an advisory board, it's very important that we are all in unison on this. And if not, then we can discuss that. But the reality of where we're at right now is that after spending the last 18 months in a very chaotic time, not just for Love Serve Feed, but for our entire country and world and everything that goes along with that. But we wanted to be very transparent about some of the things that are going on and where we feel like God is leading us in this direction. Coming up on almost 9 years of completion of Love Serve Feed, obviously we've had to go through some things and make changes and deal with the personalities that have come and gone. And it's never been something that we've taken lightly. I know sometimes that I come across as very cavalier, but I do spend a lot of time doing research, trying to find out the basics of what we need. And Laurie and I both of us take this very seriously about how we are to lead this organization. There's actually times I don't want to, that it's more difficult than it is easy. But because of you guys on the board and many of our volunteers, it has made it much easier for us to deal with. So for that, we're grateful. We're grateful for the opportunity that we have to serve with all you. And as we embark on this issue, and just mostly it's talking about the pandemic and the things that are going along with that, what some of our beliefs are and what some of the things foundationally that we have found to be true. Laurie has done some exhaustive research. I mean, we're talking about thousands and thousands of pages, and with the understanding that where validity is, we don't have all the answers. We don't even have all the questions that are needed for this. But in response to the things that are going on in our society, by the leaders of not just our community but our world, we're very concerned about some of those issues not lining up with the Bible. And so we want to make sure that you know that our heart is that we want to stay in line with who God is. And Laurie's going to go through some things that she is more adept at than I have. I've listened to much of this stuff, read much of this stuff. So her and I are in agreement in how this all works through. It's hard to do this and not be political. Because politics has come right into the middle of the decision-making process. So when we put politics in the middle of health, or put health in the middle of scriptural reference or where we stand with God, those things then we have to make sure that we're doing things to work through that process. So as the board, as part of our advisory team, we wanted to be able to share this information with you so that we can move forward, because as of June that 12th, which will be this Saturday, we're going to coincide with the things that are going on in our state and local level. I have spent time with the mayor's office talking in detail about where we're at and what we're doing. And the mayor's office is now supporting the decisions that we're talking about today for us to go away from the mask. So as we look at this, we know that there's going to be people that are adverse to that. And you know what, to be quite frank with you, I feel for them. And I don't want to isolate them and put them in a bad position. But I also cannot base all of our decisions on fear. And fear seems to be the motivator for moving a lot of these things forward, because when we do the research, we'll find out that a lot of the things that we've been fearful for in the beginning, which we didn't know. It was a bunch of unknown things that we had the ability to, just say, okay, so we're going to have to deal with this. And so because that fear was rampant in our culture, not just here, but everywhere, then we had to deal with it at that time. Since that time, we've had close to 2 years to be able to do the research that we needed for that. And as we look at that, we're just not finding those same things. So we're not going to be mandated by fear. Therefore, I can't mandate that people will wear masks. And that means whether they're serving in the line or on the other side of the line. So I don't want to mince words where my stance is on that. Of course, a lot of you know that and you would even call me rebellious in this, but I've never bought into the fact of the pandemic and the things that were going on there. My personal opinion, you can disagree with me, you can argue with me at that point, and I would be glad to have a debate about that. But the reality is that the information that we have obtained through this, which is available to everybody, it's not just us, is good, solid information on the pandemic, the mask wearing, the social distancing, the just basically the how we're to work through this process, and then no less than the vaccination. So again, we're not here to twist anything. We're only here to tell you what our stance is moving forward with Love, Serve, Feed. If you want to continue to wear a mask, we're not going to ridicule you or make you feel at odds. We just want to make sure that you understand, you know where our stance is. I don't want it to be out there that we don't know if we are or not. I had the difficulty last week when some of them didn't wear masks, and Laurie and I had been prayerfully trying to figure this out. And it's like, well, why does one week make a difference from another? And these are the types of questions that have been going on throughout the whole time that the pandemic's been going on. It's just like, so why is it that you have to social distance before you get on an airplane, and then you sit inches from someone else? So we're just seeing so many inadequacies that are going on in our society, and we just didn't want that to filter into the place of Love, Serve, Feed. We want that to be a place that people can love, and they can certainly be served or serve, and they can be fed or feed. And so as we look at the things that are going on, and like I said, Laurie's going to share some of this information with you, we want you to be aware. And so there's a difference between ignorance and basically arrogance. And so we don't want to come across with either one of those. So we have done the research and have found the things that substantially would put us in a position to deal from a standpoint of knowledge. And then arrogant. We don't want to be arrogant with that knowledge. We want to be very loving and caring, knowing that there are people that don't have that knowledge or don't want to evaluate that knowledge. And we're not someone who's going to judge them in that sense. We just want to be able to share our points and views. And so this video will be the first of a couple that Laura and I will make, because the next one will be made to send out to our Love, Serve, Feed family, and that includes all volunteers, and that includes the people who are on Facebook with us or go to our website, that they know exactly what our stance is. We just don't want it to be in a situation where people are saying, are they not? So by stating what we believe and what we're moving forward with, that gives everybody a basic principles of where we're at. And again, when Laurie and I started this, years ago, didn't have any idea that we would run into issues like this. But what we did know is that God had called us to do this. He'd put us in leadership in that position. We accepted that, and therefore that's brought us to the place where we're at today, is talking to you guys as an advisory board on how we deal with this.
One thing I want to add to what Chaz said is God placed that on, Love, Serve, Feed on Chaz's heart. He placed the spiritual mantle as the leader of the organization on Chaz. And when God speaks to Chaz and tells him something very clearly, and we move forward and trying to submit to God, but we get pushback, then we have to choose, do we make our people happy or do we honor God? And honestly, God will judge Chaz, and Chaz we would have to feel the consequences of not being obedient to God, because we carry that God-ordained mantle for running the Love, Serve, Feed. And so we've been put in this position through what's going on in our world to have to, at some point, take a stand, because as he said, both he and I have been in an immense amount of prayer and Bible study and research on all these different levels. And this, to us, our biggest fear is not obeying God. And we don't want to be sideways with him, because we don't want to stop blessing or anointing on our organization. And so when he last year, and I'll be the first to admit, I gave him a lot of pushback last year. He has never embraced the idea of what's been happening in our world as real, as truth. And as the years rolled on, we have seen, if you've been following the government, the political side, we've seen that there's been a great agenda being brought out by globalists and wicked people, the political elite. There's been things about it. It's now being even brought out now, and even our modern day prophets are saying this was planned. This whole illness is planned, and it's been weaponized. And there's been agendas and evil, dark agendas behind it. And Chaz studies so much of this stuff from a global perspective. You might see a lot of that in his posts, that he was not going to be complicit in their schemes. So he has always been that, as he said earlier, kind of the rebel with the following the word of the land, you know, the pressure that the pressure that we're feeling from government, high up government people and medical people and big pharma and everything coming down from society that might not be from a godless, might be more of a godless society. And he's always questioned it. And he's been teaching me to question it. And up until last year, I was just too busy being a voice teacher, a very full-time voice teacher and a mom, to question these things. So when he started saying no masks at Love Serve Feed in the beginning, I fought him. And I fought him because we are on public property, being at Hernandez Middle School. We are on school property. If Love Serve Feed was located at our house or located on private property or property we owned, I would have felt differently. But because we were on school property, I was afraid that somebody might report us if we all weren't being compliant with what the mandates were, and that we would be reported and shut down. And I knew that we needed to be out there. So I fought him hard for weeks. And we eventually went to our spiritual mentor who lives in Florida, who's been our mentor for our marriage and our spiritual and our finances for our entire married life, 30 years. And he said, you know, basically we need to follow the laws of the land. And so we decided to submit our ego, our whatever we felt to our local authority, Craig Morgan, our mayor. And that's Chaz. Y'all heard Chaz would call them weekly. And I was really proud of him for taking that counsel and that guidance so that we could continue until we knew more, because we didn't know. But that also started me on a journey of very, very deep research about the virus, about what was going on in our world, our politics, from the spiritual perspective, from the government perspective, from I've learned that there's God has risen up this whole army of modern day prophets right now that he is speaking through, and some of you listen to them as well as me, and some of us talk about it a lot. And they're very explicit that this is a plan of the enemy, but God is using this time to bring about revival. What the enemy means for wicked, God is bringing about for good. And right now in our land, all this evil and wickedness and everything that's being exposed is going to be exposed and brought to justice. And it's a time for us really to celebrate. And God is speaking through the prophets not to be fearful in this time, and that we need to celebrate and look to him, because God's glory is about to come in a big time way on this earth. There's going to be revival. We're going to see miraculous things happen in a very short time. But it started, one of the things that God has allowed to happen is this situation with COVID, because it's exposing a lot of the wickedness in our world. And God, before our very eyes, is going to be delivering us from that. And so we have a choice to make. Are we going to live in fear and buy into what the world is selling? Or are we going to buy into faith and listen to what the Bible says, what God is speaking through the prophets, and after many, many months of prayer, what he's telling us? So I did a big, extensive research, and y'all are welcome to it. I have put together a Google Doc of over 75 pages of everything, all things COVID, from the political perspective, from the economic perspective, from health, from mental health, from mask wearing to vaccines, to what God says, to what the prophet says, to common sense things. And I have been collecting videos and documents and medical journals and those peer review studies and I have gotten data from every of the major, medical associations, CDC, WHO, all these people, America's frontline doctors, top politicians dealing with this, prophets, people in the church who are telling people to fear. So in this time in the beginning, right when the beginning happened, and I was concerned about Love Serve Feed, what we were going to do. I was concerned about my studio because they're shutting down. 4 voice teachers got together and decided to shut down the world, said that singing is bad. It put the fear of God into everybody. And so you saw Broadway shut down, and you saw athletics shut down, and then everything was being shut down. And what happened was my students started questioning, what do we do? We're singers, and singers is supposed to be a super spreader. You're not allowed to sing. You're not allowed to go to church and sing. So I was like, God, what's going to happen? And he plain as day spoke to me and said, Laurie, this is a disease of fear. If you do not fear, you'll be fine. If you give into fear, then that's when you're going to have problems, basically. And he told me that so plain that I made the decision right there to be fearless. Bought the shirt, lived my life to be fearless. And so Chaz and I, in our hearts, in our home, decided not to fear anything going on. We stood on faith, and I just started doing my research. And, God says, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a power of love and a sound mind. Power, if we're standing in faith and not fear, is we have the power through the authority of Jesus to stop anything from affecting our family, to rise above it, to call the heavenly forces to come down and fight our battle for us, which is what we need to be doing at Love Serve Feed, and encouraging people and speaking life and speaking fear and power into their lives, and that they can overcome this. And then love, that we continue to do what we do is by love, serve, feeding our community. And lately I've had more people than not come up to me and say, man, I just got somebody come up to me and told me I needed to wear a mask. Do we really have to wear a mask? And I'm starting to sense that the mask is becoming a god, that we are putting the face mask as an idol, and we are not loving people. And we have volunteers that cannot wear the face masks, and I'm having to say, you can't go in the line. And that is not what God has intended for Love Serve Feed. And he's really been speaking to my heart about that, because what are we representing? We're representing fear to these people that we're supposed to love. So if we are a power, love, and a sound mind, if we are a sound mind, then we make wise choices. We don't make choices based on fear or pressure or control. We make choices based on soundness, the love of God, the glory of God, the peace, things that are sent to us by God, so we can run and serve and love our community without any stipulations. And so there's a couple of things, if we talk to y'all over the last weeks about it, and I know there's been some emotions, and I understand because I felt it too. But there's a couple of topics people brought up, and I've done some research. There is, most people in our world are going to follow the mainstream media and what they're hearing and the fear. And we have to stand alone, and we have to be that narrow road that lead people to Christ and that lead people down the road of righteousness and faith. So we are going to be kind of awkward and strange, but more and more society's opening up right now, and you're going to see H-E-B's opened up, Walmart's open, you're going to see employees and customers shopping and working without masks. I haven't ever worn a mask to work. I haven't ever. The only time I wear a mask is maybe to get my hair done, because I go to a place where they demand it, and for a while until the Texas mandate came. Once the Texas mandate came down, we stopped wearing them.
And guys, we're not part of the cancer culture. We're not here
No.
to not do something. For instance, Laurie and I just went on a plane trip.
We wore masks.
They mandated that you have the mask on, so we put the mask on. We're not here to be contradictory in everything that goes on, but we're also not going to walk in fear. I mean, I walked in many stores before everybody else was taking their mask off, and I would have people come up to me in a H-E-B and say, I'm so glad you're not wearing a mask. And I had, older ladies tell me that they couldn't breathe and they're struggling and they don't know what to do. And then I've had also the people that would look at me like I was, a maniac. And the fact is that I was not going to allow
Pressure,
the pressure. I'm just never been one of those guys that have fallen to pressure. It's not something that I'm actually very grateful that I don't do that. But I know that there's a lot of people that do. And again, I just want to reemphasize that we're not here to change your ideas or concepts. We're just telling you this is what we need to do stepping forward.
So let me address real quick some of the concerns that have been brought up that we've heard. We need to respect people's fear. People are afraid, so we need to make sure we honor their fear. And my question is, where in the Bible does it say that? So if y'all, to me, the Bible says there's 365 scriptures that tell us not to fear, one for every day of the year. And so we have to stand on that faith that God will honor that. And then another thing is germs matter, only germs matter. And I say that people matter. And we love, serve, and feed people. And we've had germs our whole life. And God gave us immune systems and ways to fight it. And all the study and research I've done, there's many ways people are fighting COVID. Many doctors I'm following now that have had 100% cure rate. Nobody's been hospitalized just because they've known the right cure, which is out there for people. So there's no reason to live in fear. And then because we aren't doctors, I know that that's been a concern, that we're making a seeming medical decision. But again, I have studied for a year of medical professionals and all kinds of science. And I'm just not convinced that this is something we need to be afraid of. And then that we need to wear masks like we wear gloves. And I've never seen that happen in the food service before. I've never seen food service people wear masks to serve. So I went on the health department website and I Googled, do we need to wear face masks while serving food? And there's absolutely not even a word, a snippet about that. So we follow the state, guidelines for health and food service. And there's nothing there that says food service workers have to wear masks. Gloves, yes, but not masks. So we are in compliance, if that is a concern, and we are not stepping outside of what we've been mandated by the state. But just to let you know a couple of other things, these are the things that we've considered. God gave us immune systems. We've been taking vitamin D, and we have a stash of ivermectin that our doctor gave us many months ago, and nobody in our family's been sick, and I have a daughter-in-law who's a nurse in a COVID unit. And none of us have been sick. We just really boosted our immune system and trusted God. God gave us lungs, and he gave us lungs to breathe freely. And there are a lot of people that can't breathe freely, and they need to be able to breathe freely. Like one of our volunteers, that's doctor mandated her not to wear anything because she's got really severe asthma. And should we tell her not to come serve on the line? No, we can't do that. That's not who we are or what we want to present.
Well, so we're not going to do that moving forward. And that's, again, as an advisory board, we want you to know our heart in this.
Yeah.
And as we put this video together, we would like your buy-in in that. And if not, then you need to communicate with us so that we can discuss it. And because we do need to move forward on this.
Also, face masks, all this medical stuff. And I have a Google Doc, 75 pages long. If you want to see it, I'd be happy to share it with you. All kinds of data from medical journals to Fauci to everybody. Fauci flip-flopped his belief on those face masks. They don't stop the spread of coronavirus. The particles are too small, and they will not, the face masks we wear. So it was meant by Fauci, he even admitted it. It's meant as theater to make people take the virus seriously, but it's not effective. And the study was out. There was a CDC study done out of 156 patients. 71% of them who got COVID wore masks all the time. 14% wore them sometimes. Only 4% got COVID who never wore them. So there's something that's not quite up with that. Face masks are unhealthy and dangerous all in themselves because you're breathing in your own bacteria. And I've been concerned about the heat. And I sweat, and then us having the mask on, not breathing, and getting lightheaded, and breathing in any of our own bacteria, which is not healthy for us. And I don't want to mandate we do that anymore, especially going into this hot, humid summer. Right now, the COVID mortality rate is currently 1.8% in the U.S. And we bought into all this, it's seasonal flu rankings. And we bought into all this public hysteria, and we just don't want to participate in that anymore from a political or a pressure perspective. Chaz and I, he said, we've been out to eat many restaurants. We've been in many different states, and It's interesting how we come back to our conservative state and we see more masking here in our area than we have in Vegas and in Arizona and in Utah and even in Nashville. And I'm about to go to a health and freedom conference in Florida next month, and it's all maskless. All the frontline doctors are going to be speaking there. And so I don't want to also be in the place where we're mandating face masks when everybody else is bringing them down, because that's going to put distrust into our community. Also, the people who have mental health issues. I've had in my personal studio, I have more students suicidal, depressed, go on medication, go to have to counsel, being checked into mental hospitals than COVID. And they're not being able to see smiles, hugs. They're not being able to have normal relationships. They've been stripped away from their friends. It's real, and it hurts my heart more than the fear does. So they need the hugs. They need the smiles. The experts say that 6 feet social distancing isn't real because viruses can actually travel further. So that's just kind of a number that was given, and I'll explain why in a minute. Oh, can you go tell us that we have somebody walking in? I'll finish up quickly. Babies that come need to see smiles and faces and feel that touch in the earliest years of development to develop normally. And they're not seeing that right now. And just some data, child trafficking has been able to be so much easier because they've been able to tape up children's mouths and hide them by the face masks. We don't know who's being trafficked as much now, and it's a big problem, thankfully, that's being dealt with. Now, from a spiritual perspective, all the COVID measures that we are experiencing is really dark, and from a spiritual perspective, we have to be really careful of what we participate in. And just so you know, a lot of the people in our government are not godly people, and I've learned a whole lot in this last year, gone down some major intense rabbit holes, things that would sicken you to know the truth about. But some of our leaders are into satanic worship and cults. And all of our social distancing, hand washing, 6 feet apart lockdowns has come from, I hate to even say this, hurts to even say this, it comes from satanic rituals. Masks are to reduce people to limit their airflow so they can't think clearly and become submissive. I got this off of a website called eyeopeningtruth.com. They to lose their old identity and are trained to have a new identity as a slave, a servant of Satan. There's many resources, not just that one. The mask wearing ritual is designed to possess you with the spirit of subversience to your overlords, who are the many antichrists. That's in 1 John 2:18. The mask have been a cultic symbol of thousands of years, and it's a secret plot of power. The hand washing repeatedly for 30 seconds, the obsessive kind, where it's throughout the day, is a ritual to wash away the old self. In the Bible, before Jesus died, Pilate turned the responsible people over to their sins by washing his hands of them. Satanists wash their hands before their ceremonies to symbolize rejection. The 6 feet apart social distancing is our state-mandated humiliation. That number is based on the satanic number of 6. No other reason for that number other than to stand 6 feet apart. During satanic sacrifices, they stand 6 feet apart and they wear face masks before they do satanic ceremonies. It's the 6 of 666, and the goal is to eliminate fellowship of believers, stopping church services worldwide, arresting pastors for holding church to limit the effect of Christianity on earth. The lockdowns are rituals of social isolation meant to purify the initiate so that he can never enter the new order unimpeded by things of the past no longer considered. So step 1 is isolation. Step 2 is surrender to the new normal. Step 3, sacrifice. Step 4, submission. Think mandatory, everything that they're putting on us right now. Satan has used the mask to turn nice people into tormentors. The neighbors turning against neighbors, like California had those snitch lines where that you called and reported your neighbor for being outside without a mask. Gossiping, bullying, stalking others, and being unloving to friends. Family, strangers for their own selfish reasons. We have people showing up, so I'm going to hurry. This is all very symbolic of the mark of the beast. This is not the time for that yet, according to the prophets, but this is a dry run for that. So the face mask and the shot have become idols. We are to put no other gods before him. If we live in fear, we choose No, we choose notions adhere to the Word of God. We cannot be responsible for someone's fear, but we can love them. We cannot fall to the false pressure, and we cannot make the face mask our God, because clearly God says, "Thousands shall have no other gods before me." That's 1 Corinthians. Read 1 Corinthians 10 on how God feels about idolatry, and also what he says in Colossians 3, 1 through 17. We've been extremely close to losing our freedoms as a country, closer than most realize. We live in a free country. Our liberties matter. And all the mandates are unconstitutional. So with all that, we have had a lot to consider. A lot of it's been really heavy and really deep, and it's been really weighing on our hearts. We take your concerns seriously. We've done our research. We know a lot of y'all are traveling right now, and this is why we chose to just make a video and send it out. And if y'all could let us know your response by the end of the day today, because we'd like to send this out to Love Serve Feed tomorrow.
So guys, too, also what Laurie just covered, again, we're not trying to convince you of anything. Simply, we've done the research, and it'd be very remiss on our part to have information that we feel is very solid, very, worked through, processed, prayed about, if we didn't share that information with you. And so we're not sharing this to convince. We're sharing this simply for information for you to
Education.
have, so that you have the ability then to make decisions based on maybe something that you didn't have.
Or lead others through their fear.
And then if you have questions on any of this information, we'll be glad to provide the sources and everything that has been done on this. But you just need to hear our heart on this. One of the things that we want to do is to walk away from the intervention that we feel is satanic from this point, of trying to make us do the things and then become complicit with the way of evil. And we're just not going to do that. So we're going to start walking in freedom. And that freedom is going to be based on who God is, not who the adversary is. I'm not concerned about Satan or anything that he has to do. The stuff that Laurie just read to you, that's information that is out there. But the fact is that I serve a God that is much bigger than all of that.
And revival is coming, and God is cleansing this.
Right. And God has no equal in Satan. He's not his counterpart, because he doesn't have that ability. So just know that as we go through this, our desire is to be able to share information with you that we feel is legitimate. And you're the one that has to decide if it's legitimate, but you can do that with your research, and we'll provide all that documentation to you.
Everything we said today has been extremely well documented.
So we love you guys. Our heart is to continue Love Serve Feeding, and we want to be able to do this in unity. So with that, we love you.
Love y'all.